All right, everybody, welcome to the March 10th meeting of the Richmond Conservation Commission. We have a quorum here. 1, 2, 3, 5. Quorum is 4. We're recording. Everybody can hear. Could I get volunteers for a timekeeper and a minutes taker? I'm actually happy to timekeep if nobody wants to. At some point, I can teach folks how to do that. But the way that MMCTV wants to have it done is like kind of particular. So until I teach somebody else, I guess I'll just do it.
I'll do time.
Minutes.
Minutes.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Kit.
Yeah.
Next up,
Do we have time to inquire about the minutes?
sure. What would you like to inquire
Well,
about?
I'm just curious with this new system, how long it's taking people. Because even though I'm using Otter and found myself putting 2 to 3 hours into it.
Oh,
Because I wanted to, just make sure that Otter wasn't missing anything that I was also recording. How about for you?
I honestly think I'm using, what
Yeah, the
we're doing,
transcript. Yep.
and it seems really quite straightforward, and I probably take about an hour, maybe hour and 15 minutes to do it. It depends. Some of it has to do with my computer skills and where am I saving this to. I've got, Windows 11 and it's a pain. So anyway, yeah, about an hour and a half.
Okay. Yeah, I would
Okay.
say that yeah, maybe we can find a way to cut that down a little bit because at this point we're recording the meetings. Folks we're not publishing the full transcript, but we are making that accessible to whoever is doing minutes. And I think the main goal is just to catch most of the high points. So what I like to do is I typically will just grab the agenda for whatever the day is and then fill my notes in as we go, just like a couple notes here or there. If we're having a discussion.
I do that too. Do you?
I'm doing that too.
Okay, great.
I've got, right.
So things that must be captured are motions and votes. So, whoever motioned, whoever seconded, if there's a proposal of some kind that we're voting on, that is important stuff that needs to be captured and
Yes.
put in the minutes. Aside from that, it doesn't have to be exact. We have the whole thing on recording. I think that the main goal is to, catch the main thrust of the meeting. And if somebody really wants to dig into every last detail, then you can look at the full recording. A great example, if you look at any of the meeting minutes for select board agenda items, sometimes a 20-minute discussion will be 3 sentences in the select board minutes. So I really would want to discourage folks from spending too much time on minutes because it shouldn't be a huge burden. I would be happy to do them if I wasn't running the meetings. It's a little bit challenging for me to try to lead the discussion and take minutes at the same time. But I would say err on the side of being brief. And then if we're having issues with minutes not being fleshed out enough, then we can, I feel like, have that discussion down the road. But I think right now, I really don't want folks to get burnt out on taking minutes. I think it should be, a couple of quick notes during the meeting, and then you can fill that in a little bit with whatever the transcript says, but don't feel like you need to incorporate everything from the transcript. And then, the rest is all posted on YouTube, so folks can get the full context there if they need it.
And I think too, if we get more people coming in,
Yes.
joining us, and we can split it up a little better because right now it's not, we're
Yeah,
not
you've been doing
splitting.
the minutes like
Well,
almost
Jeanette, you
yeah,
did them.
yeah, Jeanette did, yeah.
And then I did them a couple times before that.
Yeah, you've done a number.
And I think as we go around, we can divide that up.
Yeah, and
Time.
yeah, I'd love to not have to do assignments, but I know that's what Judy did. I mean, Judy
Yeah.
basically just had a round robin system where there were a few times where I was like, oh, I'm happy to do minutes. And she was like, no, it's not your turn. So we don't have to do it that way either. I would, I'd prefer to get volunteers, but I don't want people to feel pressured. Like Kit, you've been generous and offered a bunch of times in the past 6 months. So I just want to make sure that it's fair and that, we're spreading that around a little bit and nobody feels like they're getting really burnt out on doing the minutes.
And I think we should be checking.
I'm sorry I haven't been able to offer minutes Or or minutes,
Hey.
or what's the other thing?
Oh, timekeeper is the other one.
Timekeeping. Yeah.
So
Especially because at this phase, I'm still probably not going to be at the whole meeting. So yeah, I'm sorry that I haven't been able to offer that, and I appreciate other people.
yeah, I just wanted to also add that I think we should start keeping track a little bit, like with the hard numbers of what people are putting, what kind of time we're putting into our project. So for instance, I've been putting a lot of time into various projects between meetings. So to add minutes on top of that is just not feeling great. So I
Yeah.
know I'd like, yeah, I get the wisdom of like saying, let's take turns, but at the same time, I think it kind of depends on how much each of us are kind of contributing to doing homework or such between meetings.
It is, but I also want to be sensitive to the fact that different people have very different availabilities depending on whatever else they're juggling. You know, like I'm chairing 2 committees. I've got a full-time job. I've got other stuff going on. You know, some folks
Well, I
might.
don't think we should make assumptions about people's workloads outside of work.
I'm not, but that's my point, is that tracking time is going to be very different per person, you know? So like some people may have the energy and the time to put in, 20 hours a month, and other people might only be able to put in 5 or a couple hours, and that's fine.
The reason I'm putting that in isn't because I have the time. I don't have the time, but I'm putting it in because I'm thinking that people like Trevian and Trevor may be looking at the notes to see if they want to join the RCC. And so I'm just trying to like give them a more complete picture. And I don't think Otter is really capturing all of that.
Yeah,
But maybe I need to let go of that because I guess I'll just scale it back because I don't want to be putting 2 or 3 hours in.
Yeah, I just don't think that minutes is a place that we want to be spending hours of our time. I feel like our time is much better spent working on some of these projects that we're focused on. I think we can have a bigger impact on Richmond and even on recruitment. Spending that same amount of time coordinating something we're going to talk about later in the meeting is about, maybe tabling at the farmer's market. 2 hours coordinating and or spending time at the farmer's market, meeting people and talking about what RCC is doing, I think is going to do a lot more for the community than.
Well, maybe we
2
can't
hours.
answer this now, but what I'm
Sure.
trying to say is I think the bigger question here is how important are the minutes to the community?
Mhm.
Because the minutes are really for the community to have access, people who can't participate but want to keep up or consider joining a committee.
True, and also what I can do as my homework is I can double check the either the state statutes or the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to see if there are any like hard requirements that we need to make sure that we're hitting in the minutes. Because there are certain things we're supposed to be doing, like technically minutes are supposed to be submitted. Draft minutes are supposed to be up 5 days after. I know that we haven't really always complied with that, and it hasn't really been a big deal, but it's the kind of thing where it's not a problem until it is a problem, right? Like if somebody is looking for the minutes because maybe something that's really important to members of the town happened in an RCC meeting, and then the minutes aren't available. This was even more crucial before because there was no recording. Then we can get ourselves into a little bit of hot water. But I can go back through and make sure that I'm clear that we're hitting all of the requirements, for Richmond and or like the state of Vermont for doing, compliant minutes. And then I would encourage folks to just try to hit that, minimum amount. Anything you want to do over that, great. But I think that there's just, we've got the recordings, and I think that if people are feeling burnt out, especially because we've only had a couple folks doing minutes recently, I would hate to see people just get discouraged or burnt out over doing minutes.
Yeah, so I'm
because
curious
it's
with these 2 newish members, did you look at the minutes?
I did, because there were no recordings before. So I read the meeting minutes like multiple months back. And then I was like, because I was thinking like I think since last summer, I was thinking like I need to learn a bunch of stuff before I apply. I feel like I'm like don't know enough things. And then I think but right before I actually was like I should just apply. Because then I read all the meeting minutes, and then there was the meeting where there wasn't a quorum, and then I had to reschedule the meeting, and then like I was like I should just apply because there's 2 seats that are open, and I'm never really gonna be like I'm fully caught up, and I'm like just all the different topics. I should just join, I'll learn it and do it. But now that there's videos, I would just watch the videos on like 2x speed on YouTube. And then I wouldn't read the minutes probably. But I did when they were the only thing.
Guess a couple times I've been on other boards, I've thought of the minutes as a formal act of record keeping should something come up, but not meant to be very informative to someone who wasn't there.
I agree. I think that it's just, yeah, sort of like matters of public record. So like I said before, motions, votes. So, things that I would capture in a regular meeting would be who motioned and who seconded on approval of the minutes. And then how many votes, was it unanimously approved, or was there anyone that abstained? Those types of things should be included.
Yeah.
But then just a very brief summary. You can say like, here's what this 30-minute discussion, here's the general discussion that
Well,
took
but also
place.
it's fairly new that we're recording.
It's true. But even before,
So,
yeah,
no, like that changes my calculus. Like
Yeah.
now that I know the public has access, especially if we're trying to keep bringing in new members,
Mhm.
then that makes me more comfortable keeping my note-taking brief.
Yeah, and I think that I guess being vague about the entire discussion, people can listen to everyone's point of view, but I think that what can happen if you're trying to be too detailed, unless you're going back and double checking what every single person said, then you can sometimes you can misrepresent what somebody said, and then people get upset about the minutes reflecting something that they didn't necessarily even say. So I think that's another good reason why just a general summary of like what the topic was, and then people can go to the source material if they really want to know exactly how the discussion played out. And then basically what's the takeaway, right? There was a discussion, and then RCC decided to make a motion and vote, or RCC decided to delegate some of this to a working group and we'll revisit next meeting. That's the type of stuff that I think should be captured, not necessarily all the debate that happened. It's basically just topic and what was the result. Topic, what was the result? So, some of the ACFC meeting minutes recently have been like 1 to 2 pages, and it's been fine. So,
I don't actually know what is supposed to be in minutes. I've taken minutes one time ever in 2004. And so like, and that was the only time I've ever done minutes for a meeting, and that they never had me do it again.
well,
That was like when I was like 20. So
Yeah.
like,
I'll double check. I'll make sure that I'm not missing anything like crucial in terms of like, legal requirements or whatever we're supposed to be
Yeah.
capturing. So maybe next meeting, I throw a few minutes on the agenda where I can review what taking, meeting minutes entails for the rest of the commission, and then we'll all be clear on what we need to be capturing. That said, I'm not prepared to present that now, so I think we should probably keep moving on since we're a couple minutes behind. Speaking of minutes, can we get a motion to approve the February 10th minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
I second that.
You can't second because you're not on the commission yet.
Touche.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Susanna. Sorry, Trevian. Next meeting, hopefully you'll be able to
Okay,
do that.
fair.
Any comments or discussion on the February 10th minutes? Nope. Okay. All in favor of approving the February 10th minutes, say aye.
I
I,
Aye.
Okay, so we got unanimous approval. Okay, moving on. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the agenda?
I just wanted to share an opportunity at the end.
Okay,
Or is that for matters arising?
yeah, I mean, if it's
It'll only take a minute.
either is fine. I mean, if you would like for us to discuss it, I guess we can mention it now. But if
No,
it's
we
just
don't
sort of
need to
if it's just a
discuss it.
notice,
It's an announcement.
okay, then yeah, we can do it. It matters arising at the end. Okay, well then we'll jump into the agenda. First up, as I'm sure many of you already know, we had town meeting day. Thank you everybody who posted on Front Porch Forum in support of, or I should say, in educating the voters of Richmond about what the Conservation Reserve Fund is and what it does for the town, and encouraging folks to vote however they so choose. It did pass. Hey, John. 636 to 230, so that's about 73% of Richmond voters voted to approve the Conservation Reserve Fund. So that is great news for us, considering it's one of the things that we help steward. So I was glad to see that that many folks are approving of it. I don't know, that's probably one of the higher affirmative percentages we've seen for that. I think it was about 70% the year before.
I always wonder why people wouldn't approve of it.
Well, some people,
What would be the reason for?
Oh, it was fought really hard for years.
yeah,
Really?
Years to get it passed.
yeah.
It was bloody.
Huh.
And yeah, there were a few folks that seemed to be in opposition at town meeting day. Folks that just have really tight budgets and feel like, it does seem like common sense to us. I feel like we're all pretty like-minded. It pulls in a lot of outside funding and it supports a lot of great efforts in Richmond. But some folks are really just trying to pay like the least amount of tax, and I feel like occasionally maybe people feel like they're not a fan of the way that the fund is being used. Like they would rather see that money appropriated towards like this building or towards, somebody had even mentioned housing supply in Richmond. And I think there are different avenues for funding those types of things, but you can't fund everything and some people have different priorities. But thankfully, about 3/4 of Richmond voters this year who came out and voted decided that they wanted to support the Conservation Reserve Fund. So that was good. Moving on, do we have any updates on the Vermont Master Naturalist program? I figured I'm just kind of putting this on here every month in case you have any updates, but no pressure if you don't.
I do have a few updates actually.
Great.
I only have updates about my project. I don't have any about Rebecca and David's project. But okay, let me just actually open the email that I wrote to my partner in this, because I kind of summarized everything. Okay, so I was able to attend this cool presentation put on by Federation of Vermont Lakes and Ponds, also known as FOVLAP, which I hadn't heard of. So this woman, I'm forgetting her name, Annie something, she undertook at this pond in Middlebury manual spading techniques for really large stands of Phragmites. And so basically based on that, and I can go into more detail if people are interested, but that's, I think, the method that we're going to use for the little tiny stand that's in the Lily Pond across Route 2. And then also, if he's okay with it, the property owner that has there's like a kind of wide but narrow stand of Phragmites. And I also spoke with this woman named Mary Walls, who represents a group called Knot in Hyde Park, but it's spelled KNOT. And they're working on eradicating knotweed there. And it was just like a very informative and helpful conversation about how a small group that's just really persistent can over years start to make a difference. And she gave me some interesting information about like how they plot the areas and their communication with the road crews in town to prevent spread, and how they talk to property owners. So basically and then I talked to Jeanette because she talked to the property owner that has the Phragmites stand. So my next step is to put some information together about the spading and what that would look like. I think it's going to be, we'll have to talk about it more, but basically it could just be like a couple days in July and a couple days in August. And I'll be putting together a materials request for those days. And I'll have to be recruiting some volunteers in my neighborhood and elsewhere. So I think that's it for my update. Let me just think for a second. Oh, so the person who I'm working with, she lives in Jericho, but she's in my group. And I think she's going to take on trying to find out who mows that area and what we can do about it. So we'll be delegating some different tasks as we go along. Yeah, I think that's everything for my project.
Okay, great. Thanks for the updates. And yeah, I guess let me know if you need any help with materials request when that comes up. And I'm sure that some folks on the commission would be happy to volunteer if you're looking for folks in a wider area than just your neighborhood. I have not ever had to deal with Phragmites before, so I'd be certainly interested in learning how to deal with it.
I have a question for John. Do you know if we have spades? Have you used the spading method?
In the town,
Yeah,
the highway department might, but, no. And what do you mean full, and I guess, I'm not really sure what you're talking, full-size spades, like
Susanna could tell you.
hand trowels?
Sorry, there's a fussy baby over here. Yeah, I think they're full-size spades and they have to be really sharp. That's part of the materials request. It's also for a sharpener or a grinder because like the spading technique it's not for digging, it's for just like there's a kind of pictorial infographic that I wish I could show you guys, but it's just like you go in at a 45-degree angle and that's it, because you just want to detach the stalk from the rhizome. You don't want to like kind of jiggle anything around and create new points where the rhizome could shoot off. So I guess the way I've been thinking about it is like, unless we already have these flat spades and they're able to be sharpened pretty well, that we might be getting new ones. But I don't know.
Would an industrial weed whacker work?
No,
Water level?
you are actually going down into the rhizome, but you're not digging it out, if that makes sense. You're just going like, so like, let's say, I don't know how to show you without this.
I think I get it. It makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't believe the tap, I mean, there's no, I have some hand trowels that we purchased years ago and some garlic mustard weeding forks, but nothing at that scale.
Yeah, I think it's going to be heavier duty. And then the other materials that we'll need are, like with Phragmites, you have to get rid of all of the plant matter because of the seed heads. So we'll have to get some bags, and then we'll have to have somebody, hopefully with a pickup truck, take it to the compost center in Williston.
I don't know how deep you want to go into this now.
Well, I'm just a little concerned about barking up this tree if there are any issues with, the spades themselves. Like if Susanna's going to be creating a budget and bring it to us for funding, I think we just need to think through that. Is this a wise choice? Does the town already have them? Is there, an alternative tool that we already have that we wouldn't need to purchase? And then my third concern is just with the safety of it. If we have a big group of volunteers and say somebody brings some kids and there's sharp instruments that are being used, are we going to be held liable if something happens?
Those are conversations with Josh, I think.
Yeah.
But I think, and you could just say, these might not be, you could decide who gets to come to these things. But, you could say, this is not a project for kids, or maybe it is. Or certainly, but I guess the other question, Susanna, is if you cut them before they go to seed, you probably don't need to haul away this, there's no seed pods or seed heads to haul away.
Well, sorry, there's lullaby stuff going on in the background. I need to look more into this, but my understanding is that, yeah, let me circle back to people, like, because I'm thinking about last year's plants and if what needs to be done with those, like if those have any viability or not. And then it is true that you are wanting to get them in July before they go to seed. Hold on one second.
I think ultimately, this is helpful. We didn't allocate a lot of time to talk about this, and it sounds like we'll be talking a lot more about it as the, project moves forward. So I think we should move on. I think
Okay.
we have some good, some good thoughts here. Trevor, do you have?
Just to clarify, a spade, I think, is what a lot of us should just think of as a shovel.
I've seen an
Right.
image that she shared with me of those spades. They're wicked sharp.
Right, but it's
And
the
shovels are like it's a flat shovel. It's a flat edged shovel that has a sharp edge.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you can educate us on that when we talk about this, in a future meeting. I think as far as like the safety concerns, like there are safety concerns with, Save Our Salamanders, like the big nights where we don't want people on certain roads. So I think we can work through this stuff. But we'll want to talk through all these things and coordinate with Josh and see, does the town already have some of this equipment, and whether or not it's something that we need new equipment for, and whether or not we think that the town wants to spend money on that. I think we'd want to make a case that hopefully it's going to be used at a few different places and not just for this one project.
Yeah.
If there are plans to tackle Phragmites across Richmond, and this is sort of like the first area that we're trying out, then, I could see that being a more popular than just being like, hey, we need a bunch of equipment, but we're only doing this one project.
Oh yeah, that is, okay, that is the case. And also this is not going to be just 1 year, because it will take at least 3 years for this particular stand.
Got it.
And I'm thinking we need to take more time to talk about this, maybe at the next meeting.
Yeah, or whenever Susanna wants to bring it up again, because we're going to have the materials request. So maybe the meeting ahead of that. So if you're planning things out, Susanna, and you're thinking July, August is when you're going to want to hit the Phragmites, then we'll probably want to be reviewing that application in either June or even May. So maybe it is next meeting that we want to talk about this in advance of getting a materials request in at the May meeting, because then it's going to have to go to the select board. So there's going to be some timing on that. So that would be my recommendation, but we can coordinate on that if you have any questions, and we can put it on the next agenda.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Is the farmers market thing next on the agenda? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
It's not. We have a couple of items. We've got probably 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes of material before that item.
Is it okay if I dip out for a little bit and then rejoin?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving on. I guess I didn't put it on the agenda, but I can give a really quick ACFC update. I keep forgetting to put that on here. Last night we finished the recreation and ecology appendix, and the time before that we finished the ecology section. And the meeting before that, I think we finished education, and a few meetings before that we did recreation. So we've been really moving through all these last pieces. And so Brad and I have a meeting next Monday to go over the entire management plan, but I think we are holding pretty close to that timeline I gave last month. So hopefully in a month, maybe 2 max, we should have the management plan done, and then it'll be sent out to this committee for people to review. That's all I'll give for now. If you want to know more, check the minutes and/or watch the videos.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful.
Last item for updates. I will remind folks there's another, or there should be, as far as I know, the UVM landscape design class should be back on the 18th from noon. I put this wrong on the agenda, from noon to 2:30. So that's at the volunteers green. The students are working on various designs for potentially improving volunteers green. It's a student project, so none of it's really, binding, or it's not like we're paying anything for this, but they might have some good ideas. And it's sort of all encompassing from anything from, parking to, erosion and, invasive species and whatnot. So if anyone is interested in attending. The students, last time we basically just did a big loop around the green and they asked a bunch of questions. John was there, I was there, Trevor was there, and we were there with Josh, and then the class. So if anyone's interested, feel free to show up, just to kind of tag along, or if you
I'll probably go again.
yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, I did a lot of listening, but I feel like you won't really know until they ask questions about whether or not it's something that you can speak to. Thankfully, Josh was there, so he had a lot of the history.
It's like Josh knows a lot.
Yeah, he knows. I mean, as the town
I
manager,
know,
he
it's like,
should.
wow, it's a good thing Josh is here, because
Yeah. John had a lot to say
But yeah.
too. And I had a little bit to say. I felt like I was able to chime in a bit. So anyone who wants to show up, I'd say the more the merrier. But I figured I would just remind folks I should be there for most of the time, but I've got an appointment at 2, so I'll have to dip out a little bit early. And that's it for updates. So I think we should move on. Next up, reviewing an application we got from Trevian to join the Conservation Commission. Welcome, Trevian. We welcomed you before, but I'll welcome you again. If you want to just introduce yourself and I don't know, say a few words, and if anyone has any questions about your application or you're interested in joining the commission, we can go around and folks can ask questions, and then we'll have a motion to approve. Hopefully.
Okay.
It's not a very strict process. I'm sure we will make a motion to approve your application.
Okay, so I needn't be sweating.
No, you should.
Well, thanks everybody. My name's Trevian Stanger. Been living up on the hill up here, which some people call the pinnacle. My daughter and I call Acorn Peak because it's shaped like an acorn and it's full of oaks up top. Been there almost 10 years now. I've been teaching full-time environmental studies at St. Mike's for 8 years now. And just today, I was outside for 2 different groups of students. One group, we were learning some tree ID, moving through our food forest, which is a sort of outdoor orchard that we're trying to mimic a natural system. That's part of our 360-acre natural area that we manage and steward, which has its own really interesting landscape history of having been in farming up until about 8 years ago. It's now in a conservation easement. So we're having this pretty significant mosaic of different types of rewilding happening, some of it passive, some of it active, some of it thinking about invasives, other parts thinking about more like permaculture and us having an influence on the land. So rather than a hands-off conservation, sort of a hands-on, build a relationship with the place, 10 different plantings. We have a nursery on campus. And then another group of students, we were doing watershed stuff, thinking about what's upstream, what's downstream, how do you go about answering a question as simple as, is it safe to swim in this river? So I guess my point here, just in my day job, I already kind of think about and care about a lot of these things. I really like getting young people engaged and involved, hopefully sending them all home someday to be active, eco-literate members of their own home watersheds. And part of being one for me here over the years has been doing lots of tree planting projects with St. Mike's, with my previous years working for the Intervale Conservation Nursery. Teamed up with John Card on a few different things over the years. I'd have a hard time even knowing how and when we met or why, but it came around trees and rivers. And I suppose after, many years of being kind of in the real thicket of sort of what Susanna's still in, of raising a little one. My wife used to work full-time as a midwife, so I did not feel like I had time to join this up until kind of recently. Finally feel like I've hit a somewhat more spacious mode in my family life, and to dedicate some time each month in service to the town and to this little node of the watershed feels good. Been on the board for Society of Ecological Restoration, which I found underwhelming because it's regional and there's not much you can do other than sign up for kind of busy work and plan conferences elsewhere. And it's a fine organization. The literature they put out is wonderful. It's cool to be a member, But as a board, I'm much more interested in what you all get to do. It's like actually work on stuff that then takes shape in the real world right around us. So some experience with the board part. Looking forward to it being, should I join, as I'm saying, a little more active and participatory. I love doing outside stuff with people. I love leading tree plantings. I love getting kids involved. The idea that this commission can do some of that. I love the other things that it seems to be working on. I liked the idea. I'll say my final thing was in talking it over with Sam, who's also my neighbor, by the way, lives up on the hill. Unlike another role that was going to go through 2030, I do come with humility that we'll see if it's a good fit for me and for the commission. So to join something for only a year-ish, year to two, feels good too. So just out of transparency that, yeah, I'll I'm trying it out if y'all would have me. That's the one I'm putting my hat in for 2 years or 1.5, something like that. So there you go. There's my opening volley.
Do you want to start, Kate? Do you have any questions?
Well, I sort of don't. I like everything you've said, and I read earlier what you had written, and I'm really happy that you're applying, Trevi, and
Thanks.
I worked with you on that.
Yeah.
Worked with you. I volunteered with you on the Master Naturalist program, and
Yeah.
you're motivated, and you know, I can tell that you want to do a lot, and yeah.
Cool.
So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Such a great program, and we both learned a lot.
Yeah, it was. We
about
learned
this
a lot.
place. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to know what projects interest you the most, what challenges do you find you have the bandwidth to tackle?
So I tend to, if I think about my teaching, I end up initiating, designing, and following through on probably a big project a season with students. And that kind of rhythm feels good to me. So I'm not one to do like 10 things a little bit. I tend to do like one thing, one bigger thing, put some time into it, and like to see that through. And for me, that's generally involved around transforming areas that have almost no tree cover or no riparian area to let's fill this place with trees. Let's make it an awesome day. Let's think it through. If there's the trees, there's music, there's cider and donuts. There's a sense of like an opening sort of ceremony almost of like we're doing something together. This is a momentous day. Let's get this place started on some recovery. So that's been most of mine. I'll be honest, I tend to gravitate much more to the put life back in than take life out. I know invasive work's important. It's certainly less my forte or even less my interest, but again, we have places that are naturally air where it is important. I get that. I like the idea of community involvement. I know it's cool to just work with other professionals, but when people show up, even if it's only for an hour and they bring their kids or it's just a few young folks come through, getting like MMU involved sometime, something like that. John and I did one with RES students when they came down once.
Campbell's home.
It was Campbell's home, excuse me.
2 or 3 teachers have come down for years.
Yeah, so love that stuff. So yeah, those things. Don't mind being, you could probably tell just how I'm speaking. I don't mind being the one kind of teaching, leading an event. That's more my strength than heavy back-end computer work. Yeah, so engaging with people at the farmers market sounds awesome. Like that's more, I'm kind of a extrovert in that sense. Yeah.
Great.
Excellent.
Great.
Any other questions, Jeanette?
Do you think you'll be able to use your connections to the Intervale to help us? I know, we're setting up these neighborhood projects. Maybe Sam's filled you in, the rewilding your own neighborhood. And so the idea behind that is helping neighbors feel empowered with an early detected patch of something to be able to feel successful removing it.
Yeah.
But that going full circle and having someone like you with a connection to the Intervale who could help us find the appropriate trees to put in,
Something
to ideally shade out the lower growing herbaceous growth, like,
Yeah,
you know, goutweed or garlic mustard would be really,
yeah.
really helpful and exciting. Is that something that you think you'd be able to help us with? Shut the window.
Well, we like
But
it.
is AC running though.
Is
We
that?
love it.
Mary who? Oh, that's hysterical.
You could ask nicely.
Why do we have to shut it?
I don't know, but
Well, should we?
Because,
was-
it's making heat anymore,
Oh,
theoretically.
it was,
Oh.
I mean, it was open when we got here. I don't know, if we opened it or if it was already.
So anyways, you were saying,
It's common that between Branch Out Burlington, the Intervale, and Winooski and RCD, that trees get offered to my colleague Declan and I at usually sometime around spring, sometime around fall, where there's some extra around and they know we like getting the extra trees. To possibly divert some of those, the projects around here is totally gonna be fine, yes. In terms of like a formal request, if we know we've got a project, I think they would give us a good price at
mhm,
the Intervale. The conservation nursery, trees are cheap when you get them bare root from a conservation nursery compared to like buying them from gardeners. Like we can get a bunch of red maples for like $4, $5 each. So
yeah, so I would hope that I could turn to you and consult with you, like, what do you think is appropriate to grow here?
yeah, great.
And can we work together, figure out who we need to contact?
Yeah, great.
At the various places to get the reduced rates and
Yeah.
get them in at the most appropriate timing to have that kind of
Yeah.
communication would be great.
Yeah, I'll be.
And I'm also curious if you have students or classes where we might be able to recruit them to help us with various projects.
I'd certainly try to include them. I would love that. Yeah, especially if it's particular classes that it's a good fit. But most of mine, I could just kind of make it a good fit. That question of what should be planted after invasives removal, when it's appropriate, I'd love to just see what the guiding principles are so far with you all. I definitely like the concept that we need to not just remove the invasive, but change the conditions that the invasives are responding to. So to me, we've had luck of like blast so many wood chips into an area after you remove the honeysuckle or the barberry or the teasel, because often they're just responding to very compacted, nutrient poor soils. Those would do well there. They're almost helping restore it. Sometimes they're showing up and be like, oh, I know how to grow here. I'll help get this place going again. If you remove those, often they're just coming back because they're the one best suited to that kind of damaged place that we've made. So to kickstart better soils through introduction of tons of wood chips, anytime we can get wood chips for almost any project, they are a benefit. It's an amazing modern product from trees that we didn't used to have. So yeah, stuff like that. I'd love to think through beyond the removal part too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Trevor, any questions?
Don't really have any questions.
Yeah, I know you pretty well from living in the same neighborhood, so I don't have any questions either. I do think based on some of the discussion we just had, yeah, it's great to hear that you're more excited about the sort of like restoration portion, because we have been pretty focused on trying to identify and remove some of the stuff that's not supposed to be here. So, and we haven't talked too much about the replacement part, and I think that is definitely sort of like the next thing that we need to be talking about coming up soon. So this timing seems pretty good, just in terms of having somebody who's got some experience and excitement in doing that. Also, as far as sourcing stuff for plantings and maximizing our dollars, I can also reach out to the WNRCD people, because they had mentioned that there is not much funding available for non-native species removal projects, but there is funding potentially for restoration. So sometimes if you lump those together, you can actually get funding for both. But it sounded like there was definitely funding for the restoration stuff. So it could be that we could also get matching funds from them to further to get more mileage out of any like CRF funds that we use for plantings. So
Cool.
Um,
I guess the one added thinking I would have for that would be when we're putting something back in, that it could it be including what species we plant, but also ongoing human involvement for a while. That often, if it can be, if a neighborhood, as your this sort of neighborhood model, if you have people who feel invested to now go check on it yearly and prune some trees, remove just the saplings of the invasives that keep coming back, that seems wonderful.
Yeah.
And a cool part of it. A
That
guy,
happened in my neighborhood.
yeah,
We did a bang up job, but then the neighbors saw, well, no, there's more over there. And they on their own
cool, kept going.
kept doing it.
Yeah, great. I like the guiding phrase that humans generally overestimate what we can do in the short term, but underestimate what we can do in the long term. And a conservation-minded people can be thinking long term. And by doing some of that work, cool long-term outcomes.
Right.
okay, well, any other questions? Susanna, did you have any questions for Trevian?
No, unfortunately, my connection is not super stable, so I'm missing some of what's being said. But in thinking about the long-term Phragmites work on bigger patches, I am really interested in talking in the future more about like if we're just trying to remove all of that, then how can we, like years down the road, start to repopulate it with healthy native stuff? So I'm excited about that.
We were about to do a huge Phragmites removal at the St. Mike's Natural Area as part of the conservation easement. So as the feds were going to be doing it, it was a significant price tag and a significant amount of herbicides is the way the feds do it, with a lot of heavy equipment and right near waterways. I don't personally love that. I don't know how much we would be in the business of proposing that to a community. So learning more about people who've had success with things like you're describing, Susanna, sounds wonderful. Be cool to see if we can maybe try a couple different test plots, a couple different methods, which one seems to be working better over time. Maybe some heavy equipment comes in if it's sensitive, but you're right. What goes in after that instead? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation about manual removal versus herbicides, because it's definitely a hot topic, and there's sites where there's so many different, well, not so many, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's benefits and drawbacks for everything. So but yeah, look forward to talking about it, and I appreciate you coming and sharing, even though I couldn't hear all of it.
Great. Well, yeah, I think we should wrap up discussion then. Would someone like to make a motion? I have sort of like a draft motion. Typically, chair doesn't make motions. I can, but it's usually best practice for non-chairs to make a motion. But essentially, the motion would be to recommend that the select board approve Trevian's application to join the Richmond Conservation Commission with term ending May 2027.
You're making that motion?
I was reading it. If somebody else would like, I can make the motion. Sure, why not? I'll make the motion.
I second that.
Okay. Any discussion? I know we just sort of had questions and whatnot, but any discussion? Okay. Well then, I guess we'll just go around and state our name and our vote. Sam, aye.
Trevor, I.
Jeanette, I.
Kip, I.
Susanna, I.
Excellent. Okay, great. So I'll pass it along to Josh. I don't know if it'll get on the next select board agenda. It may be the one after, but they do the actual appointments.
Yes.
So we'll recommend that that we unanimously recommend that they appoint you to the open seat ending term ending May 2027. And I'll let you know which, as soon as I hear back from Josh, which select board meeting that's happening at. Typically, folks, yeah, I don't know, like when they approved yours, did they even ask any questions? I feel like they
Yeah.
kind of just ripped right through it.
I think they read the minutes possibly, because they asked
Okay.
me questions from the minutes, like, so you know about this? And I was like, I don't remember saying that one, but like this other thing. But then they'll ask you primarily, can you go to the meetings? Like, and then ethics training.
Yeah,
Those
gotcha.
like the-
So,
Those are like the two things they'll, like, you're okay with taking the ethics training? Yes. Like,
but yeah, generally, when there's the flurry of appointments at the beginning of the term, I don't think everyone shows up to the select board meetings. They just kind of go through all the appointments. But when we have sort of like an out of sync appointment, usually it's better when the applicant is at the select board meeting. So I can just let you know whatever meeting they're gonna be reviewing the application at. And you can just zoom in, or you can show up in person if you want, but I'll try to make the meeting as well. I typically, if whenever RCC has business with the select board, I try to show up. But I'll let you know once they have the agenda set and you're on it. Cool, and yeah, feel free to stick around and join in the rest of the conversation we have tonight. And thanks for your application.
Yeah, cool. Excited about it.
Yeah.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Next up, we've got discussion about the Conservation Commission joining AVCC, the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions. I think we've been a member in the past, and I've been getting some emails from them, and it's a tiny expense. It's $50 a year. Their main goal is to support, convene, and inform Vermont's existing conservation commissions. And they have other things like tiny grants that are available to members. So I don't know. It seems like a nice effort to join in on. I can try to pull up the correspondence I had with Judy about it. But I was just curious if folks had thoughts on that. I think that we should rejoin or join if we haven't been a member in the past. Even just out of like solidarity for $50 a year seems like a pretty small expense, but also it seems like they help coordinate and help the conservation commissions communicate with one another. So we might be able to learn from other conservation commissions on what they're up to and how we can kind of sync up. So it seems like a good opportunity. So I'm curious if folks have thoughts about that. You might have mentioned this a couple, like it might have been the meeting that we reviewed your application, or maybe it was
it's like after
meeting.
that.
Okay.
When I was doing research, I'm like, what's going on? And I found this. And so like I read their stuff to like research different things.
Yeah.
And there's helpful things. And I think it seems like a worthwhile thing to join.
Yeah, and I can let me just see.
John has something to say.
I was gonna say, I assume it's still around, I haven't used it in a while, but their listserv is really invaluable. If you want to just post a question, like, we're trying to do this, is any other town doing?
Oh, that's cool.
Can be very helpful. You don't want to bombard people with stuff, but hard if you want to really help you figure out where your ideas might fall. In the spectrum of how to happen.
Okay. Yeah, that's super helpful. Because I do feel like we have a tendency to kind of like try to reinvent the wheel here, where if we have an idea, then we talk about it and come up with an idea. But it could be that in some cases somebody already has figured out how to do it, and we're just spending a lot of time talking about something when we could be spending that same amount of time doing something.
Here.
Yeah. And yeah, Judy had mentioned, I totally endorse joining AVCC. That's a great resource, and we've joined before. She had also mentioned, I'd like the town to automatically pay the annual amount, but didn't get far with that. So I can ask Josh about it. Although, yeah, I don't know if I think technically we would want to make a motion to approve spending the $50 a year, and then I can talk with Josh about whether or not that needs to go to the select board, or if it's something that we can just build into like the town budget or something. It seems silly that we need to vote on it every year to rejoin. So I can work on that. But I think we should make a motion, if we would like to join. Just so we have it on the record. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I will make the motion.
Okay.
And sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go for it.
Well, after the vote, I have something to add on.
Okay. So like during discussion of the motion,
Uh,
or is it not does it not pertain to the motion?
it doesn't pertain to the motion.
Okay. Well, you can talk about it before you motion if you want, or we can tag it on afterwards.
Well, I think we should tag it on afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Do you want me to quickly write up what the motion should be? I guess I should have written this out in advance.
That would be awesome.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Thank you.
If anyone has any other comments about AVCC while I'm writing this up, feel free to speak your mind.
I guess you'd have something there that this could save us money and effort to learn from other towns.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't necessarily need to like profit maximize or like, like try to get our like the funds going, to do as a way to like make money, but like there are grants that we can apply for. So ultimately it could end up saving the town money if we pay the $50, but then we get like an $800 grant to go to do some small project. Then, that's basically setting us up for over 10 years of membership. So it seems like
I like that big statewide issues are brought up,
Yeah,
that we're all, made aware of them and feel united and, just galvanizing the support to weigh in. Are you gonna say?
There's a large portion of their like money that they come in from dues goes back out as grants, like a very high percentage. But I think that's good that, they really don't have much operating expenses. I think it's like mailing and some like paper, like it's pretty minimal. The rest of it just goes back out in their tiny grants.
Oh.
So that's like reading their different reports and stuff.
John, do we know if we've ever applied for a tiny grant?
I've never heard of it, but it's probably too small to be significant. Considering the Conservation Reserve Fund budget, might want to decide whether it's worth applying for $500 worth of money. If that's that issue of time.
We're probably financially like ahead of most of the conservation commissions.
Yeah.
So when we're doing,
But we always have to keep our eyes out for matching funds.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I was thinking about when we did the root and aside thing and like how Bolton's budget for like the whole year is like hundreds of dollars were.
right.
Okay, so I don't know if this covers it, but what I have is a motion to recommend that Richmond spend $50 per year in conservation reserve funds to join the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions. I don't know if it needs to be any stricter than that.
That's different than having it funded out of the budget. You mean of the conservation reserve fund budget versus budget?
Well, I don't know how that works, and I would have to talk to Josh about it. And I don't know if we can. I think technically, if it's like a line item in the town budget, it wouldn't come from CRF. It would basically, there would just be a $50 allocation in the town budget. And then that way it wouldn't, I believe if it was a line item in the budget, that we wouldn't have to have this discussion every year. It would just get built into the budget. And that would, disappear in the, multi-million-dollar budget that the town has. So it would be pretty much nothing. So that would be awfully convenient. And considering it's only $50, I feel like that would be the wise choice. But I don't know if like whether or not that works. So I suppose,
The select board would have to put it into the budget, agree that they wanted to do that.
yeah, I mean, what we could do is I'll take out the per year and just say that, like, for right now, a motion to recommend that Richmond spend $50 in conservation reserve funds to join the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions. And then I can follow up with Josh on AVCC membership.
I was just mostly asking because when you first mentioned how the $50 would be used or would be spent or where it would come from, I was thinking budget, but then not CRF money. But I don't know if the CRF also just makes sense to use if
Yeah,
it's
considering we just passed the town budget, it's not going to happen right now. So I think,
Right, yeah.
you know, if we want to join now, CRF funds would be the way to do it. But it could be that this time next year or in 10 months from now, or we could talk
Yeah.
about it and maybe get it added as a line item. But I would defer to Josh on what the best practice is there. And
Right.
maybe that's something that we would need to talk to the select board about, and then they would approve to add it to the budget. I don't really know how the town budget works. But it would be nice if we didn't have to talk about this every year. But we have the motion. So Susanna, does that motion sound good to you? Oh, she disappeared. Does someone else want to make the motion? I guess I can just make the motion again. I will make a motion to recommend that Richmond spend $50 in conservation reserve funds to join the Vermont Association of Conservation Commissions. Is there a second?
second.
Okay. And any further discussion? Okay, then we'll take a vote. The folks could state their name and their vote. Sam, I.
Trevor, I.
Jeanette, I.
Kit, I.
Susanna might be frozen. But we have four is both a quorum and it's like a majority, so we can have an
hear
abstention
us.
due to technical difficulties. So if you want to just
Oh,
state
I'm
that.
back.
Oh, you're back. Would you like to vote on this motion? Did
I.
you? Okay. Okay, great. Excellent. Okay, then we will move on, and I will reach out to Josh about how we want to handle that, and I'll keep you guys updated. Next up, we've got farmers market tabling. Susanna, do you want to run with this one? I can give a little bit of background, but it was something that you had brought up and wanted on the agenda.
Yeah, so the other thing that I wanted to say,
Oh,
which
sorry.
is not
Yeah.
really related to what you were saying, but mildly, is that and I'm sorry.
Oh, she froze.
In
We're losing.
Montpelier.
You're cutting in and out. If you go to audio only, maybe we would have a better time hearing you?
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that we can hear you. Yeah. You want to mention, like, can you start over from what you wanted to mention? Because you got cut off.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a full agenda item, but there's a Vermont Introduced Species collaborative gathering in Montpelier on Friday, May 8th. And I just wanted to put it on the agenda in case we wanted to send one of us. It says, join land stewards, SISMAs, state agencies, municipalities, and individuals.
Yeah, so that is, yeah, I suppose we could talk about that. Is there a registration deadline?
One second.
So that type of information we can send out to the full committee if we're not discussing it. So just a reminder, you know, because of open meeting law, if we have more than a quorum, or I should say a quorum or more on the same email chain, we can't really discuss much. We can coordinate things like scheduling meetings. And if someone has an
Okay.
event like that they think that folks would like to potentially attend, or you have you find some, article that you would like the commission to read, that kind of stuff is fine. We just can't have back and forth discussion. However, you can respond to a less than quorum email of conservation commissioners, or, you could, obviously converse with somebody one-on-one. So you could reply directly to them rather than to the whole group. So this is the type of thing that if we think we should discuss as a full committee, we could maybe put it on the agenda for next month, unless the registration deadline is going to be over by then. Otherwise, that's the kind of thing that you can absolutely blast out to the commission and just say like, hey, FYI, this event is happening. You might want to attend. So,
But it has to be a less than quorum.
no, you can do it because it's informational. So as long as we're not
Okay.
discussing back and forth, like, hey, you can basically
Okay.
say, FYI, here's an event that other commissioners may be interested in, and that's fine because it's just informational purposes only, and it's not discussion, and we're not making any decisions or debating anything. We're basically just saying like, this is a thing that's happening, just so you know.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And then if you think we should talk about it, you can email me directly and we can get it on the agenda. Or I might see it and decide, hey, we should talk about this as a commission. Or if anyone thinks that it's something we should talk about more, we can put it on the agenda and discuss it further.
Okay.
So that's usually how that stuff works.
I was gonna make that same announcement.
Oh, great. Was that your thing for the end?
Yeah, because I just learned about it today.
Okay, great.
Seems like something I'm personally interested in attending.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like, yeah, we can revisit at the very end, I guess.
We don't need to revisit it.
Or you could just,
That's-
if one or
enough said.
if one or both of you just, wants to send out the information about it, then folks will be in the know and we can decide whether or not we want to talk about it next month. But it could be that folks just decide, hey, I'm going to sign up for this, and people will just do it individually. Well, thank you both for bringing that up.
Susanna, do you want to send it to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, farmers market tabling. I guess I can give like a little bit of history. We have done a few farmers market tabling events in the past. I don't believe we did any last year, but the year before we did 2 rounds, and we didn't reach out until probably the middle to like latter half of the season. And we did one on invasive species identification, and then both plant and insects. And then we did one on it was all just the saber salamander stuff, right, Jeanette? I wasn't at that one. So we had 2 events. Obviously, Richmond, the RCC covers a number of different topics, and so it doesn't have to be the same event every time. So if we coordinate with them, as we have done in the past, we could absolutely do some, education and potentially some recruitment. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, Susanna, since you brought it up. And we've done it in the past. It just didn't happen last year.
Yeah, so I think when I was thinking about it, I was telling Jeanette like Phragmites it's forming a monoculture in my brain. So it's like I'm like I want to tell people how to look for it and like find patches early while we can still get to them manually. And so like that's kind of what I'm thinking about if I were at the farmers market that I would want to do, because I think RCC, it feels like there's a lot of different projects that we're working on in like different channels, and so I could imagine like a couple people tabling for RCC and just like educating people about like just this is like maybe we could make like a kind of broad calendar of events of what's happening this spring and summer and fall, or there could be more specific tabling, like if it were me about Phragmites, or if it were, I don't know, what other people would want to do. So yeah, I guess I don't really know which direction it would go, and if it would go in the more broad or the more specific.
Yeah, I think the main thing to consider is just how engaging can you be? Because when you're at the farmers market, when we did I did the first one, and what we learned is we were just kind of sitting there with a table, with like no signs. And we did have a bunch of like invasive species that I had like pulled up earlier that day to show off. But compared to everyone else who is there to sell goods and they have their fancy, you know, pavilions and their signs and all their wares, it was a little bit hard to like pull people in. So I think the main thing to think about is what do we want to do that's going to be engaging? So I think didn't you have like a little game or like something something that was like interactive to get people to like
Yeah,
identify?
my table was really hopping with people because I had a couple of activities and one, you were invited to do and you got a sticker of a frog after you did a little quiz that children could do with their parents, and actually all ages were interested in doing it. They had a lot of fun. I did want to mention that in order for it to be engaging, just be aware that that took me about 8 hours to prepare, and it felt worth it. So whoever wants to table about us, like if you wanted to do that with Phragmites, we'd want you to be successful and have it be engaging. And just
Jeanette,
be
did you
aware.
feel like you got like follow-up from that event of people interested in the amphibian crossings, like specifically that? Okay.
I did. I had a mailing list that I generated with people who stopped at the table. They would add their name to the mailing list, and then I was able to email them last year when we
Did
the
they
amphibian-
come to the events?
I can't remember. Right now, it's just not in my head. Some did, but yeah, I wouldn't say
Okay.
everybody on the list came.
Okay, yeah, it's giving me some stuff to think about. I don't know when the deadline is for signing up. I definitely couldn't commit to a weekly tabling, maybe once a month or every other week.
I don't think, yeah, I guess we'd also have to coordinate with them and see if they would even let us table that often. Because when we asked before, they said, oh, you can come do it a couple of times. Although granted, we did that, we reached out mid-season. But I would say once a month seems like plenty. Again, like something that we've experienced on this commission is like pacing and like burnout, and just like not trying to overburden people with too many things. Like, and because you have to organize, if you're working, during those hours, you're taking time off work and then coordinating, getting like the table, like doing all the setup and the takedown stuff. And unless we're doing the same materials every single time, which also might get a little bit old because there's a lot of the same people going to these farmers markets. I don't think that going every week would really be of much benefit to us and like the best use of our time. And it might just be a little bit redundant for folks that attend the farmers markets as well. So I would recommend
Right.
maybe once a month during the farmers market season. And then we could
Yeah.
potentially come up with a few different projects. Like Jeanette, if you saw some of your materials from the Save Our Salamanders one that you did, that was really successful. And then maybe we can find ways to do a better job with like the invasive species identification and we had basically just done identification, but we didn't really talk about removal. So we could come up with better, I don't know, maybe come up with like a sign and like different, or like a handout or something that people could take away to learn a little bit about some of the stuff. So we could potentially reach out and see if they would let us table, once a month and just work on just getting that time slot reserved. And then we can figure out, well, what do we want to do for our schedule once
Yeah.
I present each time.
I think they do let you do once a month. I'm pretty sure I've seen that option before.
Okay. Or even a couple times per season. John?
I would just say for it's worth one, I would say regardless of what the table topic is, they should develop a consistent set of, this is what the Conservation Commission is. This is how you can help. Here's examples of what we've done. And as you said, like a sign and not just something someone has to rush off and print out just before they do a session, that you have, a box with that stuff available.
Yeah, I think that's good.
And maybe while you're talking to Josh about the paying the annual fee, maybe find out what sort of money is available to make a sign.
I agree. I think that's something that we had considered a couple years ago. And if we could get like a canvas banner or something, I mean, I don't know, we don't really have like a logo, but there is like the Richmond town logo that we could probably use. And then if we just had Richmond Conservation Commission and like the picture of the round church, you know, like the icon that's on the town website, that is a lot more attention grabbing than just a couple folks sitting at a table with nothing behind them. You know, like you've got some stuff out on the table, but people like to walk by and immediately know like what are they looking at versus, you know, if there's just a bunch of papers out on the table, some people are going to be like, ah, I'm not interested. Like I don't really want to have to like ask these people what they're about.
You're a lot more credible when you look, you know.
Yeah, professional. Yeah.
The town plan had a banner.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was in like the planning budget.
Okay.
Question relates to this. At the library, there's a little pamphlet of the different conservation areas in town.
Mhm.
Is that part of the RCC? Did you all put that out?
Is
I
that-
haven't seen it.
The different trails, yeah.
That came from the Trails Committee.
Trails Committee, okay. So that's not us. They're their own jam. Those, to me, would be a fine fit to the regular public, though. They wouldn't know that those are different. Hey, these are the places where you could go interact with the nature of Richmond.
Mhm.
Here's a map of trails. And while you're at it, hey, you care about this stuff? This is what our commission does too.
Right.
And maybe on that same map, we have another map of here are sites that you could visit, that there's work that's been happening.
While you're at it, there's some Phragmites.
Yeah, join something while you're at it. I think just informing, like, I feel like I've tried to follow the work over the years and I'm still not totally sure what this commission does. So to think of the farmers market as not just recruitment, but even just like securing the vote for next year. Hey, everybody, this is what we do. What do you think we should do? We have a little suggestion box of what do you think money should be spent on?
Well, we have put together a really nice, I thought it was a nice display that went in the town hall this summer. Did you see it?
Oh, no, sorry.
When all the committees got together and they were working on the new town plan.
Mhm.
We pulled together a visual that lays out what our mission is, our
Cool.
goals and our projects.
We say town hall, you
And
mean
if you-
downstairs here?
No, actually,
Library.
it happened in the library this summer,
Oh, I missed it. Okay.
but that could be that's already done. We
Yeah.
paid for it. It could be on the table for whoever, wants to table.
Yeah, that's a good call. And we could also use some of the assets that we have that we just used for the town budget meetings leading up to to town meeting day. Like we have a list of all of the projects that, you know, the CRF has funded, which I will note is different than what all the things we do is, right? You know, like all the rewild efforts that we've been doing with Richmond Pulls Together, those, you know, we didn't have a budget. You know, we were basically just doing volunteer work. So that's beyond what the CRF does. But we do have a record of all of the projects that that the CRF fund, you know, has supported.
Mhm.
So we could also use that in generating some of these materials just to show people like, here's the impact that, you know, the Conservation Reserve Fund has on the town. Okay, well, this is all good feedback. So, Susanna, did you have any interest in reaching out to the farmers market folks? Or does somebody else here want to reach out and see if we can't get on their schedule at a cadence of about once a month?
I'm happy to do that.
That would be excellent. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind reaching out and just, let us know what they say, and then I guess maybe we'll talk about it more next meeting or,
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
I think that's gonna be more than we're gonna really wanna bite off unless there's somebody here who's really dedicated and wants to do that once a month.
Mhm.
I think probably what's more realistic would be 3 or 4 times total. Well, let's see, we're looking at May through October.
Is that, I was just looking up to see their,
That's 6 months. So if we, maybe for this
Like-
first year, shot for
like 3.
3 of the months and see how we're doing.
Yeah.
And then maybe add from there. I just worry
I could see
about,
I could see
just-
myself doing it maybe twice. I don't know what other people are thinking about right now.
It's May 29th to October 9th, so that's really just June,
That's
July,
cool.
August. No, it's the end of
Oh,
May to
okay.
the very beginning of October, so you're cutting off 2 months. So it's basically June, July, August, September. It's 4 months. So,
October.
well, I
Or what
guess,
in
but
October?
October 9th, it ends the very first
Yeah.
week. So it's the very first week of May to the very last week of May to the very first week of
Yeah.
October. So it's really 4.5 months, not 6.
Just know it was a struggle already when
Yeah.
we tried to get people to sign up and do the actual work, so I caution us from overcommitting ourselves again.
Yeah, I will note that we also were kind of somewhat haphazardly trying to figure out how to do it mid-season, and we have a lot bigger runway.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a problem with doing it once a month. Like I could maybe even be there every single Friday, because it's just leaving at like work a couple hours early, and like I don't know, I've got a pretty flexible work situation, especially if it's doing volunteer work. So
Is there anyone here besides me who feels pumped about saying, yeah, I want to do one?
I want to do one. Or do we do it in pairs even? Like,
Probably want pairs.
we just sign up get us signed up and then who will join at that time?
it is nice to
Okay,
have
if you're with me, we're going to be talking about Phragmites, just so you know.
You also have to get there early to set up and then like
Yeah.
take a breakdown, because my wife did town plan one like there, like, and so you do want 2 people
Yeah.
for sure. And then you also probably need to be comfortable just like leaving the table to like walk out to people coming by and just like catch them and start talking to them, because that's what she would do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like basically 2:30 to 6:30. So it's about 4 hours. So it's nice to have 2 people there because then like somebody can leave and like, if you need to go, either you can, folks can tag in, or if like somebody needs to go to the bathroom or like go get a bite to eat or walk around the market, then you're not just abandoning the table. So I would say at the very least, we would want to do pairs. So
At least to set up and take down. I know that they want 2 people, so if you bring tables and materials, I know that sometimes in the middle, like, because people could do like a couple hours at the beginning, someone might leave, but then someone comes back to like help at the end for an hour and then take down. I know that just worked the best when they did that.
yeah. Yeah, so generally speaking, like of the people here, like I guess just by a show of hands, who is like generally interested in participating at least one farmers market tabling event?
No more than one.
Okay.
I could do a half, maybe one, but it depends.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe we shoot for 3. Like one at the beginning, one at the end, and one in the middle, and just like try that this year. And then if we're successful, then we can try to do it more frequently next year.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, we are definitely behind, so we should move on. Hopefully this will be real quick. Did folks get a chance to take a look at the application for equipment for the Save Our Salamanders efforts this season? For those who didn't, it's got a description basically of the project along with some financial information about the request, which is for some notebooks, some waterproof data collection notebooks, and safety light wands plus tax. So it was basically $100 in funding for a few items to top us off for the upcoming Save Our Salamanders efforts this year. So because we're running behind, like I think a lot of us are familiar with the project and what it does and how it works. So I think that
Do you want me to just tell people the gist?
sure, if you want to just give
Really quick.
give it a gist, and then we can
We
just
need more wands that are bright lights. And we need some more all-weather notebooks to record our data. And the amount comes to about $115. So do we have to make a motion? Because I have one of you.
Yes, we need a motion because this does have to get approved by the select
Okay, you
board.
want me to read it?
Yes, please.
Okay, the Richmond, oh,
Excuse me, point of order. Since you're leading the project, it would probably be better if you had someone else make the motion.
okay. Can I have
think-
Kit read
think
it?
So, I think that's probably safe.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
Thanks, John.
Is this it right here? Okay, I make a motion that the Richmond Conservation Commission recommends that the select board approve up to 115 in conservation reserve funds to cover the cost of data collection notebooks and safety lights as described by the Richmond Save Our Salamanders network for the spring of 2026 season. The request meets CRF criteria A1-A5 and B4 and B5 as enumerated in the proposal as related to providing access and preserving recreational opportunities and conserving an important natural resource.
We get a second.
Second.
Okay, great.
Want me to email that to you?
I have it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in the doc, so
That's right, you already have it.
I already got it. Great, so we have, yeah, motion from Kit, second from Trevor. Any further discussion? Or I should say, any discussion? Okay, cool, then we'll, take a vote. I guess we'll start with Kit since you made the motion.
Kip, aye.
Am I allowed to vote?
Yeah.
Okay, Jeanette, no,
Probably should recuse yourself.
okay, I'm gonna recuse,
Since you are the beneficiary of the vote of the funding,
I guess. I mean, I see it as a group effort, but
but who else is say,
Yeah, I suppose, I guess you could just,
recuse yourself?
yeah, you could abstain. I think that,
We have enough members.
Jeanette, technically, Jeanette doesn't stand to gain any more than the rest of the town of Richmond, unless it's just in sheer enjoyment of saving salamanders, I suppose.
and
But there's no real like financial benefit, I guess, to you that's greater than any other member of the commission or the town. But we still, if everyone else votes in the affirmative, if you abstain, we can still approve this. So,
well, to be on the up and up, I'll abstain.
okay, cool.
Sure,
Sam, aye.
Susanna, I.
Okay, cool. So passes with 4 yays and 1 abstention. Great. So I'll get that to Josh, and then Jeanette, I'll coordinate with you on whenever that hits the select board agenda.
the ethics commission was taking questions, then you could ask them, but they're not, so.
What's that?
The ethics commission would like shut down their questions.
Oh, did
At
they?
state level, they don't have the staff to like answer questions about things.
Interesting.
Like otherwise you could just ask them, but
There is an upcoming, I could find it. There's an upcoming like open meeting law thing that the Vermont League of Towns and Cities is doing.
answering all questions from towns, like they only take stuff from, I think it's the state essentially.
Okay.
Because they couldn't staff their like department to answer the questions that all towns were flooding them with questions about different things and they just couldn't answer them.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I guess it's just a basics class, I guess, and I think you need to have membership with Vermont League of Cities and Towns, but next Wednesday there's an open meeting law basics class at 6 p.m. So that's a webinar. But yeah, we should move on because we're running short on time, and we should get to our last item before closure, which is invasive plant species management in Richmond. So Gina, do you want to talk on this or
Why don't you open it up?
Okay, so essentially, the past few meetings, we've been talking about our approach to managing invasive species in Richmond. And our approach was to, come up with this sort of stock or like boilerplate RFP that then we could use to fill out for projects in areas like Volunteers Green and Overocker, and other places in town. And the hope was that we could basically just sort of like fill it out per project. Because of some of what we are looking at in terms of what we would like to manage, things like bindweed and knotweed, which are, very resilient and typically only respond well to use of herbicides. Some members of the commission thought that maybe we should take a step back and make sure that we're really clear on how we're proceeding here, because and whether or not we want to be, you know, sort of like, you know, endorsing or, you know, promoting the use of herbicides, or if we are going to do you know, manual removal only, and if we are going to be submitting RFPs and trying to hire firms that are going to take care of this stuff, that we are comfortable, you know, speaking to like why we might use herbicide use for treatment of some of these plants, because a lot of folks, especially those who are, you know, completely uneducated about managing invasive plant species, might immediately recoil at the thought of using an herbicide, which I totally get. You know, like using glyphosate, you know, especially you know, in food production and whatnot, is like you know, upsets a lot of people for good reason. And so it seems like it would make sense to take a step back and talk about things sort of at like a broader level, just to make sure that we're all sort of hopefully on the same page, and to just sort of like open up a discussion to see, you know, how we would like to proceed. And with that, I don't know exactly how it was initially uncovered, but Jeanette, you
You
found.
want me to talk about that now?
Yeah.
So I thought the best place to start really is to look at John Cart's management plan, which was incredibly well written and thought out. And after going through it a few times, it occurs to me that it can be perhaps expanded with the other areas that we add throughout town, so that we can have, you know, sort of a comprehensive and coordinated approach to not just Overrocker and the park, but other areas that we may pursue in town. So honestly, I think it's so well written that really the only thing that needs to be updated is the sections about the introduction, site description, site purpose, how to restore the integrity of the healthy silver maple, ostrich fern, floodplain forest. Those are all still current, that information, and it's excellent. But the sections that have to do with the current conditions, species inventory, mapping, management prioritization, and timeline need updating, since those were done, I believe, John, like in 2008 or 2010. So my thought, just to wrap it up, is that it'd be ideal, I think, to not only is that area really important to pay attention to because it's such a significant natural community here in town, but it seems like some of what's going on in there is beyond the scope of what volunteers can manage alone. So that sort of intersects with this idea we've been brewing over the year, which is to hire a professional for situations just like that, where there might be small patches that volunteers can handle, but in addition to that, we would add another layer of expertise and professionalism to help us in the years going forward.
Great. Yeah, I took a look at the management plan as well, and I really appreciate how thorough it is and how it talks about you know, prioritizing the various species that we should be focusing on and why. And yeah, I guess I would be interested in you know, updating it. I know it does mention, it's somewhere in here, I can't remember where, it had mentioned potentially talking about updating it yearly, and I don't know when this was last updated.
That was an insane idea.
Yeah, to update it every year. But it's been, you know, 10 or 15 years now, so I feel like it could use some updates. Maybe it doesn't need to be updated yearly, but I think there's a lot of really good information, and it may even change what we want to, you know, focus on. You know, this is specifically talking about the, you know, silver maple, ostrich fern floodplain forest, and we had talked about maybe our first project being Volunteers Green, but this natural community, the ostrich fern, the silver maple ostrich fern floodplain forest, is sort of is more important. And so maybe we want to shift our focus to first project being at Overrockers and not at Volunteer Screen. So yeah, I guess I'm just curious.
I wanted to add that I consulted with Sean Beckett from the North Branch Nature
Oh, okay.
Center, because
Yep.
they're doing some wonderful work. You know, he led one of those workshops
Yeah.
in Mad River Valley to educate people about the various things that they're trying there, including they're just starting to use herbicides on knotweed. And he recommended a couple of outfits. One is Red Start and another is called the Northwood Stewardship Center. And then right down the road, you all might be familiar with Riverscape Ecology. They do this kind of work. They specialize in floodplain forests.
Oh, wow.
John, I spoke today with Robert Hyman, and he said that you two have had some communications over the years. Just the reason I scouted them out a little bit was to see if part of what they do would be to possibly help us update our management plan by doing the inventory and the mapping and getting all of that current. And he said yes.
If I could, well, for what it's worth, I could just throw a few things in there.
Yeah, I would love to hear any context you have.
First, so that plan was written specifically for the floodplain forest. And you can call at least sections of Volunteers Green. It's still a silver maple Worcestershire floodplain forest in deep need of recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. But there are several different species at Overrocker that are the problem, and it's more a single one or two species at Volunteers Green. But I guess what I'd say is, it's pretty clear that all those species are all in places, or in all those all the town locations, and at the town forest there's other species. I would encourage you not to wait until like a full-scale survey and mapping is done.
Mm-hmm.
You can draw back, you can outline the boundary of the parcels and say you want to work on invasives within there. And then in the process of doing the first year or two of treatment, you can start marking where things are. But I wouldn't waste a year trying to do an inventory.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this person I spoke with said he felt he could do all of that within a year. So
Yeah.
like get busy with treating and both manually and possibly with herbicides.
Yeah.
But also that naturally they're going to need to identify where these patches are and may as well put them on a map.
Yeah, so often they'll walk around with their GPS units on all the time, and it will track everything, and then they'll hit it when they hit different species. But I would, see what they propose, but I guess I would say, yeah, you don't go with the proposal that says, well, we'll do the survey this year and start work next year.
Yeah, we want to start now with the stuff that we can easily identify and inventory as we go.
And
So is your suggestion that maybe we would then take that information and incorporate that maybe later with updating the management plan?
that would be my just say, that it will be a living document that we updated as projects come online. And then, like I said, as you read, it's focused on floodplain forests. If you want to start including town forest or other areas, you need to, I don't know if you want to do a separate section, a separate chapter, a companion report, but you might need to do a little bit of reworking.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's also been suggested that we treat this as a pilot.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
that if we're successful with it, we'll be in a better position to advocate for expanding our requests for funds, because it is gonna cost a pretty penny to do.
So yeah, I mean, that works, that makes sense to me. And then what I would say, as far as your project, the project is what you define it as. And, I understand the Conservation Commission was interested in Volunteers Green. I think what would be interesting is the biggest problem there is bindweed with some knotweed, and there may be some Phragmites along the bank. versus mostly knotweed, Phragmites, and some other woody invasives on the Overrocker parcel. It would be interesting. I think a better test or a better trial of the idea would be to try both, because the bindweed may respond very differently than the knotweed and woody stuff. And if you want to do it as a demonstration project and have some result to show to the select board or citizens, I wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket.
Okay.
Because and mainly because I know very little about what works with bindweed. And I don't know that, and so, and I would suggest trying it for 2 or 3 years as the pilot. And you could always come in, if it's going well, you could always come in with more later. You wouldn't be locked into it.
My thought is, why not 3 to 5, like go for broke? Because we all know the reality is this is a yearly undertaking.
Go for 3 to 5 what?
Years to manage.
Okay.
Like this pilot project would last from 3 to 5 years.
And do we think that the goal would be to pitch to basically pitch the idea and like the RFP to try to fund it on year 1 for 3 years, or to try to fund it annually? Like to start, I'm trying to think of like what would, I don't have no idea how
What
much
do you
this might
think?
cost, but like,
I was wondering how much it costs. but-
yeah, because like if it's going to cost $50,000 for 3 years, then people might, be frightened by that figure and say like, well, we don't think it's worth spending this kind of money just to remove a few plants that most of us don't even know are there in the first place. But if it cost $15,000, then we're doing that once, a year for 3 years, that might be better. And also, if we're looking at like success levels, right? If the first year is a disaster for some reason, then folks might feel better about, if we're just funding the first year, then it's sort of like cut your losses versus, oh, well, we already approved,
Right.
and potentially even like, I would think that we wouldn't be paying a contractor 3 years out, but I don't know. I think we'd want to manage it maybe 1 year at a time rather than, trying to set up funding for like a 5-year project. I don't even know if it's allowed based on the conservation reserve fund rules to.
Yeah, maybe in the spirit of it being a pilot project, that isn't such a great idea to go for such a long period.
I wonder if part of this process is finding examples of successful like invasive removal and reintroduction of native plants in different places, potentially in Vermont, so that both for like around the fear of herbicide and then just as like kind of like helping people see the long-term scope.
You could point to those very parcels and the Richmond Land Trust land, the Nature Conservancy land along here in town, because we worked on that for 12 years. It's just that there's no such thing as eradicating invasive species.
Right.
It's, it's doing the dishes. There's always going to be more tomorrow, but you can show a significant reduction over time. And for what it's worth, the amount of time they're going to spend debating and working on 1 year's worth of project, it's not worth repeating. I would check. I wouldn't pay 3 years or 5 years up front.
Yeah.
But you could say, give us a proposal for the next X number of years. These are just RFPs you're getting.
Yeah.
They're not agreements you're signing into. And then you could always, refine it as need be.
That's great. What do you think, Kit?
I think so. I think that's, year at a time.
And I guess the other question that like came up, and this is a concern that you had, Jeanette, was how do we want to, I'm curious what folks' thoughts are generally speaking on like herbicide use. Both, from like, I guess like a personal perspective and also like what we think the town is going to feel about it. Because like, I think when used in very certain applications, like it can be very helpful, but in some cases it's not necessarily even appropriate. I mean, you had your example of like the, feds coming in and just way overkill, using a bunch of herbicides to take care of a big section. And to me, like, I don't think that's necessarily appropriate for our community here in Richmond. And so I think that we should, I don't know, talk about it and like kind of make sure that or just kind of figure out where people are at. Hopefully we're all on the same page, but if we're not, then like we should talk about it and figure out where we stand and how we want to move forward with these types of projects, because I think that we want to make sure that we're, you know, somewhat unified in our approach, and that we think that we're aligned with the Richmond community, or that we feel like if there's a gap in education about some of this stuff, that we can, you know, bridge that gap, and so that people are feeling comfortable about this and aren't going to all show up at a select board meeting in opposition to an RFP for an invasive management you know, funding opportunity that is talking about using, you know, selected herbicide use for, you know, say knotweed. So I'd be curious. I think that's something that we should talk about as a group. And
I agree with that.
thoughts.
I think people will get really nervous about it, and I think, like, I personally don't know a lot about herbicide use. I'm in favor of it in certain circumstances, but I think that, for example, like, there are herbicides that might not impact like amphibians, for example, even if they're used in wetlands. There are herbicides that, I guess, like, one thing I'm curious about is, for example, if herbicide was used on a really large stand of Phragmites, what does that do to the soil for the next 5 to 10 years? If that's kind of like the only thing that's growing there, what is the long-term scope of, like, then what do we do in order to regenerate the soil so that it can actually host native species after that? These are all questions that I personally have, and I'd want to know before voting on stuff. And I could imagine just the average person wanting to know.
Agreed. I mean, I know a little bit about using like selected use for like stump cut treatment for stuff like, you know, buckthorn or like honeysuckle, which I'm comfortable using on my own property, but like I've never used a foliar spray and I've never dealt with anything in wetlands, and like I am also undereducated. So I think that, I don't know, maybe even considering like having some kind of like education event, or maybe just something that we can all read up on. I think also like if we put forth an RFP, like we should think about, well, I think John, you had mentioned this as like some of your comments on the sort of like boilerplate RFP was like, don't prescribe what they should do to manage. They should tell us how they would like to manage. And then we can take that feedback from those contractors and then decide, oh, wow, this is super overkill, or this seems appropriate. And
Yeah.
so then we might need to research, you know, after we put out an RFP, that doesn't necessarily say, it might say potential use of like, chemicals or herbicide use for management, but not necessarily list like what or how.
Yeah.
And then we would have to do further research and then talk about it as a group and decide, are we comfortable with this? And we don't necessarily need the select board's blessing to put out an RFP, I don't think, you know, because we're not agreeing to spend any CRF funds. We're basically just looking to see if there are any interested.
Well, did Josh tell you that we needed to make a motion first with this, or get one before the select board in order to submit an RFP?
Well, part of it was because we were trying to move forward with this like boilerplate RFP idea, but now we're kind of moving to this sort of like pilot idea where we're just focusing on, you know, volunteer screen and overrocker. So I don't know if we necessarily need that.
Maybe you could ask him.
I can ask him. I can also look through. It's so hard to keep track of all this stuff.
I'd love
I
to
don't
hear
know
what
all
other
the
people
rules.
have to say about the herbicides.
Yes. Did you have some thoughts, Trevian?
I
First.
could imagine it would be to our benefit to feel like there was a set of guiding principles we all felt comfortable with, and then we shared with others. We don't have to come up with those from scratch. We might look, for example, at NOFA, Vermont, actually has a set of land stewardship principles they call OLC, Organic Land Care. And I was looking into it, of it being the principles we will use at St. Mike's as being like, why'd you do this? Well, we are there it'd be on the other end. We're actually asking like grounds to mow less or something. And why would we ask to mow less, or like the president complains an area looks shabby? We have to be like, well, because we're trying to promote more biodiversity in these corners of campus and save money. But to subtly say it's part of this manual that we ascribe to, these principles in OLC. That just sort of gives you cover in a way. Not to be deceitful, but it's like, yeah, we're not just winging it. This comes from a set of practitioners who've had extensive experience. That manual is like sweet, 80 pages, really well organized. I went to a talk about it for some of the folks who think helped write it. Those folks might be totally willing to help chat with us sometime, meet with us. We could all have a look at it. I'd be curious what it would say about this very question. So something like that. That's just one example. There's probably others. Nature Conservancy's guidebook on how to manage invasive species.
Do they have a section on,
Nature Conservancy?
no, the
Norfolk
Northeast
one?
Organic?
Yep, they do.
On or on invasives in general?
They do. Yep.
No.
So if I could, I would say, don't do this piecemeal, do your best to try and maybe identify a few people that you can have join you at a meeting and ask them, so you can ask the questions all at once. And don't, because you could get lost in the weeds, a little in the weeds of research on what's the latest report on glyphosate versus Polaris versus something else, and you just don't know. And the biggest thing is an important thing is the scale. The amount of herbicide used on farm fields is significantly more, than probably no more than 20 gallons of glyphosate approved for wetland use was used on all the parcels of the floodplain forest that we've did starting like 2009 to 2018.
Okay.
Maybe this is something we could also take the temperature of at the farmer's market.
Oh, you guys really should know your story before you do that.
Okay.
Just wait.
So, I spoke too soon.
It's like fluoride.
So John, what does that look like? Are you maybe invite like a panel to come to one of our meetings of like 3 individuals, or?
I mean, you could call one of the invasive control treatment people. You could call someone from the Agency of Agriculture, but not like a panel discussion. You could have to spend.
Well, I
hours.
guess it's not necessarily a panel, like a full-on
Yeah.
event that we would put in the library, but I think this group, in the interest of this group feeling like we can form a consensus, I'm hearing we want more information. So I'm trying to think of like an effective way to do that. My inclination would be to call a few individuals and see if they could Zoom in, and we could schedule them, like give each person 20 minutes to share what their thoughts are, so that we could then have, a more informed discussion.
You might want to send them your questions in advance.
Yeah.
Because you don't need, if they're doing very much overlapping things, you don't necessarily want to spend their night.
How does that work? You send them questions, they answer them, and then we circulate their responses?
I'm
How's
just
that
saying,
work?
send them your questions in advance, like if you can,
Mhm.
at least some question. Figure out a few people that you might want to, find out if they're available and say, here's the general questions we're trying to figure out.
Mhm.
And then have the discussion
Mhm.
with them. But just so they have a heads up, they have an understanding of what level you want to get into
Mhm.
in advance. And they may also say, well, this other person you have on the list is gonna say the exact same thing I am.
Mhm.
And so you can make better use of their time and you're not hearing the same presentation twice.
I think also it might be worth noting that kind of like you had said with the farmers market, like before you start asking people what their thoughts are, you need to really like get clear on your own position. I would say if we're going to have speakers come, like we shouldn't just invite people to tell us like what they think about it. Like we need to do some of our own research first. And I really like Trevian's idea of, finding a guiding set of principles that, another organization has already put forth that we can look through and decide, yeah, this seems like it's in line with what we want to with what we want to do, rather than just have a panel of people talk at us and to just be a little bit oblivious. I think that we should do, we need to put in some work to make sure that we're sort of understanding where we're starting from, rather than just hoping that somebody's going to give us some magic solution for like, well, here's the responsible way to do it. Just trust
No,
us.
I agree. It'd be nice to hear a pool of
It would.
thought
I just
and,
think we should
and
read-
read
yeah.
a pool of thought, but I guess I'm already jumping to the place of trying to picture what that's gonna look like for us as a commission.
Yeah, I think we should read first and then potentially organize, if we were going to organize people that were going to, educate us further or answer questions that we couldn't have answered by reading whatever material we're digging up. I think that the venue for that would make the most sense to do it here, not to be like, hey, we're having an herbicide use event that anyone in the town like wants to come listen to this like panel talk. Like, I feel like you're just
So maybe
asking
what we're
for-
doing is finding resources, like I can think of two I've come across.
Mhm.
And you probably have a lot as a professor. You probably have read some stuff and somehow we can form a pool of what we're
Yeah.
reading and share that information and dedicate some time during our meeting to
But do we,
share what
all-
we're learning.
do we all know where we actually stand on, I mean, I'm
think what
sort
we're
of
saying is we don't
ambivalent
know
about
because
it.
we
Right,
need more information.
right, because I don't know myself. I mean, sometimes I read, like, I looking at the Waitsfield, of what, I think it was Waitsfield? What they had done over there, and I know they used some herbicides. There
Mhm.
was some herbicides used, and, there were probably times when that may be true. Maybe we will have to use herbicides, and
Yeah.
I'm not happy, I wouldn't be happy using it. I wouldn't want to put them on myself. So
Sure.
I don't know if I could ask somebody else to do that.
And you also
And-
probably can't unless you're licensed,
Right,
unless it's on your own
right.
property anyway. So,
Right,
but yeah, I think that's why we do need some kind of like guiding principles. Like we are not in favor of using herbicides on this, that, and either this like scale of invasive infestation or this specific type of species. Like maybe it's only reserved for the knotweeds and the Phragmites. And only if the patch is of a certain size. And those are the types of things that I think that we need to talk about and figure out, okay, here are sort of limits in what we're comfortable with. Because like it would be super overkill to be like, oh yeah, well, you always use stump cut treatment for any, buckthorn or honeysuckle that we come into contact with. It's just like, well, you could have ripped that out. Why did you choose to do stump cut on that? Maybe we decide we're not going to endorse herbicide use for those species at all. Or maybe, we decide in some cases, like it's not even worth pursuing that species over some of the ones that are causing more harm to a certain environment. So I think that's why we're having the discussion, because I don't know if we really can come to like a consensus right now, because I think what we're realizing is that we're not as educated as we should be on the topic. And if we're about to move forward with a big project in town that might involve herbicide use, we should be clear on what our like principles are for herbicide use, because otherwise people are going to start asking questions. Either you're at the Richmond market, or somebody shows up to one of our meetings, or we're at the farmers market, and people are going to be like, well, tell me more about like why it's okay to use like glyphosate in this situation, and you're not really going to know what to say. And so I think that maybe we need to talk about this more after we've had a chance to dig up a few resources and read up on this.
Can we come up with some action items? Like, for
Yeah.
example, Trevian could send out the organic land care thing from NOFA.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the Lake Memphremagog project. I don't know if that would be relevant, but they're doing an herbicide treatment, which I think is a thoughtfully laid out project. I could send something about that. Like, do people want to say, I'm going to look this up and send it out to everyone?
Yeah, I think that if anyone has anything like that they're aware of, like again, that's like informational. So like we can't really like discuss it via email like back and forth. But if you
Right.
have anything
We can
like that
send it.
project, yes, exactly. So like Trevian can send out. Well, Trevian can do whatever because he's not a member yet.
Yeah.
So he's not going to break open meeting law. But But yeah, if you have resources, send them out being like, hey, like, I think this is helpful. Like, Jeanette's been doing that, like sending out resources like, oh, here's an article that Sean, Beckett wrote for, North Branch, or whatever else, so, or some of the videos that you sent.
Yeah.
So I think that, folks can send out informational stuff and then we can kind of, I don't know, maybe almost do it like book club style where it's
I like that.
okay, next meeting, let's like talk for an hour about herbicides and like what we've learned and maybe even just kind of like fill out a document like together and just figure out like, okay, here's our comfort level with this size or this specific species. And then just kind of see if we can come to an agreement on guiding principles that we all.
Kate, that we give ourselves the time to do that. If we need a couple,
couple
2,
meetings.
3, 4 meetings to share this information, I think we do need to figure out how to also get that other wheel in motion, which is potentially an RFP. Maybe not completely drop that ball until we get all the information we need. I don't know how to do that, but I know you want to say something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My main thing was in order to move the RFP part forward, when we put out the proposal, which I don't think we need to wait to put it out because we don't know what people are going to propose yet.
You're right.
We don't
yeah.
know what we're going to be comfortable with or not comfortable with because we don't even know what they're saying they want to do. But if we just make it clear that for the species and then what are the practices that they're going to use in like certain situations, like are they going to always do just one thing for one species or with one of the size, the scope, and then we can be very clear in what we ask for. If you're using herbicides, what are the conditions which you use them? What's the practice you're going to use them under, and like how are you going to use that? But also, are you following some manual? Like there's standards for how things are done. Like, are you already following one of these? Because if they are, we'll know that we can look at this and say, all right, this is something that we can subscribe to. We think this makes sense, and then instead of trying to like figure it all out ahead of time, we might be totally fine with what they're proposing, or we might get it back and be like, this is not in line with what we want. We need to find some other people to do this. And then we actually get something moving also at the same time. As we wait 3 or 4 meetings, it's going to be the summer.
I think I agree with you. I think take 3 or 4 meetings to seriously do this ourselves, but in addition to that,
like concurrently,
keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. It's like, because otherwise we do a lot of research and we don't actually do a thing.
Plus, you're saying we can get some valuable information.
Yeah, we might be doing way more than we need to do because we see what we're looking at and like that sounds good. We looked at the thing and we don't have to go beyond the scope of what we're even going to consider.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a comment?
I just think I also don't recommend herbicide in all situations or necessarily in most situations.
Yeah.
But recognize that like if the Conservation Commission's one of its roles is protecting town land or conserving town land, the plants don't care. Every day they're out, the invasive plants are out, garlic mustard is changing soil chemistry and Phragmites and knotweed are forcing out other species. They're changing the habitat as you go. So it's not necessarily, and you're not, I mean, unless you want to put a bunch of town money into organizing, paying for a volunteer organizer that will work for 10 or 15 years to work on some of those big infestations, then your option is either let the knotweed or Phragmites or whatever go, or use some herbicide, get some help with some herbicide. Or it's just not good. There are only a few options. I mean, yeah, or I should say, you'll need professional help. You don't necessarily need herbicide, but you'll need professional help to do it unless you could somehow commit a whole bunch of volunteers to a whole bunch of years worth of work.
Yeah.
And professionals may, in many cases, say, no, you don't need herbicide here. We're going to do something different.
I just wanted to add that the town of Hyde Park hired somebody because of their Not in Hyde Park organization during the summers to do removal, which I thought was pretty cool. Like that they did that as a town just because of that little organization's work. But John, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the uncomfortable truth of
Yeah.
it's all working against us, and you guys are trying to put your fingers in a whole bunch of holes and a whole bunch of dams.
Yeah, and I believe in his article, Sean Beckett had said that, I think he said knotweed is impossible to control without herbicide use, which, some people might disagree, but he's definitely got a lot of experience, and to say that is, that's saying something, that it's like, that it's that hard to manage, that they basically figure like, we can't handle this like on this property without use of herbicides, and we're moving forward with trying to manage it with herbicides when we've been trying to do mechanical for years. And that's, so that's saying something. Well, we are over time. I think that we need to wrap up the discussion. But as far as how we want to move forward, I think we should, I think we're kind of clear that we want to learn more about how we want to proceed on sort of like the herbicide education and like guiding principles. Meanwhile, do we want to continue? I like the idea of trying to move forward with the RFP, since those can run parallel to one another, because we need to finish the RFP, and then it gets posted and for a certain window, and bids come in, and then we would look at them afterwards. So I don't think that I guess the question is, do we want to proceed with the RFP in parallel to learning more about the herbicides? And then second would be I totally blanked. One second ago.
You want to go with that question first?
What's that?
Do you want us to work on that first question?
Yeah, on whether or not we want to proceed with the RFP. Yeah.
I'm in favor of that.
I guess the other thing was the location. That's what I was meant to say. Is like, we talked about volunteer screen or overrocker or both. And it sounds like both is like the wise choice. I think John made some really good recommendations there. So I think those are the three things that we should agree on. Is I think we already kind of agreed on the herbicide, education piece, and we're going to work on that, and that will resurface at a meeting soon once we have a little bit more information. But in the meantime, I think we should come to an agreement on how we want to proceed with the RFP, and if that should target both locations or just one of them. I'm in favor of moving forward with the RFP for both locations, and I think that we can keep that moving. And at the worst, we get bids, and then we decide we're not ready yet, and we can always, tell the contractors, like, you only ever really usually pick one person anyway, right? I suppose you could have two different people for each location if we wanted to do that, but I guess that would be my recommendation, in which case that kind of needs to be shopped out to a working group or an individual, and then we would basically approve the RFP next meeting or the meeting after, and then basically get that going with Josh. And we were close to, I think, being there, but then that's when we decided to sort of pump the brakes to have this discussion. So we'd kind of just be returning to what we decided maybe at last meeting. So are folks comfortable with that, or do folks think that we should take a different approach? Okay.
I think I'm comfortable with going ahead with the RFP.
I think that's a good idea. I think we can do both at the same time. And I do like that we've got some new energy and a consensus here to share more information.
Yeah.
And this also brings up making sure that we can go ahead and pursue this without going to the select board.
Remember? Well, we can anyway, because I think we're going to want to,
because originally we thought we needed to get their approval to even do an RFP.
Well, we should work on the RFP anyway, and then, we don't need
to talk to Josh and find out if we can go ahead.
I'll figure that out. In the meantime, we don't need the select board's approval to write up an RFP. If we do need the select board to sign off on it, we will finish the RFP, show it to the select board, and then they'll say, hey, yeah, looks good. And then the RFP goes out. But I believe that we may be able to just get the RFP out regardless, because it's not like a binding agreement. We're basically just, shopping around for people that might be interested in this. And then, once we get bids and whatnot, then we would come up with like a CRF proposal that would match whatever that contractor is looking for, funds wise, for the project. So.
What do you think, Trevor?
I'd like to get the RFP done. Probably for the next meeting. if possible.
Okay.
So that we can like have it done and then presented to the group and see if we like it and then move forward from there.
Okay. Susanna, any thoughts on the RFP?
I'm comfortable with moving forward.
Okay. I guess the follow-up
sides.
question, what's that?
With both sides, like,
Yeah, I'm also in favor of both sides. I'm seeing nodding. So I guess Jeanette, you had been working on that with John. Are you comfortable working on that, or do you want to coordinate with somebody
I'm
else?
wondering if, would you like to take it on? Be
I
this
can try.
person to spearhead it, and I'll definitely be in communication
Yeah.
with you, but I'm gonna get really busy with this amphibian crossing season.
I can work on it.
And
as
so
long
the
as I can
timing
get stuff.
isn't quite right for me to
Yeah.
lean into this. But I still wanna be involved
Right, yeah.
and support you.
It's pretty close, right? I mean, like, because we had done a few passes on it. We had the
Yeah,
boilerplate.
we have to like get the number of acres included and.
Yeah, I don't know if we necessarily have to. Those are just things that kind of like work their way into the boilerplate.
Okay,
So, but yeah, maybe we need to do a little bit more research there. But my point is, whoever's doing it, it's not starting from scratch. We've already done a lot of work to get it pretty close to where it needs
Yeah.
to be. So hopefully it feels like the pass that I did on it was like just putting blanks that were like highlighted in yellow. And it even had all of like the town RFP, like legal stuff appended to the end.
so it would be up
It's in
to Trevor
compliance.
to go through those highlighted areas and fill in those blanks, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so.
That was what was in the last meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
I can dig up the most recent version of it and send it to you.
Is it changed from the last meeting?
I don't know, Jeanette and John might have worked on it. No, it hasn't.
Then,
Okay.
If I could add, it is generally completely ethical to talk to some of the potential bidders on this RFP in advance. And say, what do you look for in an RFP?
Yeah,
What have you done? Can you give us an example of when you've done before? Or issues that get missed or that, in advance to get some feedback.
Good.
Because they can give you some real life reality feedback, what to expect.
and okay, so if you're comfortable like sort of running point on it, I think that like Jeanette and I can both support you.
Okay.
I mean, I'm definitely happy to help. I'm pretty busy with ACFs and stuff, but I think I
So I
can.
just mentioned to him, I have 3 people he can consult with that I've
Okay.
already reached out to.
Great.
Red Start and River,
Yeah,
yeah, jumping off of
Riverside.
John's suggestion.
Okay, great. All right. Well, cool. Well, it sounds like, almost everybody here has got their marching orders for next meeting. And yeah, thank you for the discussion and also for staying a little late tonight. Since we're 18 minutes over here. Does anyone have any other business they want to mention? See you, John.
Thanks, John.
Bye, John. Thank you.
For the next meeting that I should be aware of. You can always email me anyways. Okay, well, if nobody has any items now that they want to mention for next meeting or matters arising, then I will take a motion to adjourn if somebody would like to make one.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second? Is there a second?
A second.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I always say that. I'm asking second, but like it sounds like I'm making the second. Great. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next time.